Hello. I've screwed up. I like to be super, super efficient all the time. Not always possible, but I try. So, what I did is I took my TBR and I went to my library and I requested 20 of them because that's the maximum they would let me request. And I was like, well, last time I requested books from my library, it took weeks and weeks to come through. That's fine. And then the other day, 3 of them came through. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I can read 3 books in 3 weeks. That's very reasonable. And then I did nothing. I did not read those books. And it's a week and a half later. And I just got another notification saying 6 more of the books have come through, which means I now have 9 books to read in 2 to 3 weeks, which would have been fine if I wasn't starting my new job next week, where I would be working in a different city and I'm not taking library books with me because my anxiety won't let me. So today we are going to pick up the other 6 library books. We're going to look at our stack and we are going to assess how badly I have screwed up and whether or not I can do this. Okay, so the books have been acquired and it's quite a lot. This is all the books that I have to read in the next 2 to 3 weeks. What I'm most intrigued by is why there is a little handcuff sticker. That's a sticker on top of Killers of a Certain Age. I'm sure I'll find out. I actually already bought this one on Kindle because I'd forgotten I got it through the library, but I only bought it for 99p, so I'm not that bothered. So in total there are 9 books. I only technically have to read 8 of them because when I got the notification for the other 6 books yesterday evening, I panic read this one in one sitting. So I have read White is for Witching, and I'll just give you a little summary. So the blurb says, the mazy house on the cliffs near Dover has been home to generations of silver women, and it never lets them go. Reeling from the sudden death of her mother, Lily, Miranda Silver is newly resident, young, bright, and vulnerable. In this place where apples grow in the depths of winter and secret floors are revealed in the night, she starts to eat chalk and hear voices. Slowly, she too begins to disappear. Her twin brother Elliot and her best friend Orr are left asking, where is Miranda? But only the house has an answer. And in this spine-tingling tale of magic and memory, the house isn't telling. Now, having read this book, it's like 207, not even that, 250-ish pages. I read this in one sitting. It is very creepy. It's told from multiple points of view. It has a slightly unconventional writing style, like a formatting style, when a certain point of view is being told. It's also not at all what I was expecting from the blurb. So I was expecting a run-of-the-mill haunted house mystery when I read the blurb. It is definitely a haunted house, but it's not in the way I was expecting at all. Trigger warnings to be aware of. There is a huge theme of disordered eating, partially from Miranda's diagnosis of pica, which is mentioned on the back, just not by name. For those who don't know, pica is a disorder where you feel inclined to eat foods that have no inclined to eat things that have no nutritional value. So in her case, it's chalk and plastic. Or some people eat dirt, some people eat gravel, some people eat like bits of sofa, stuff like that. That's what pica is. But combined with that is quite a serious eating disorder that is entirely relevant to the plot. It's not just thrown in there. The characters are really interesting. Even though things are told from their point of view, I didn't feel like I had like direct access to how they were necessarily feeling about everything. The tension definitely builds throughout the book. It's weird. It's a very odd, very atmospheric book. I would definitely recommend it if you like horror, or even just sort of, what's the word, like magical realism in books, because it's not a full-blown fantasy. It's one of those books where you know how you got from the beginning to the end. Like, logically you know, but it's so full of interesting choices and just little... I think what I'm trying to say is that it's unpredictable. It's an unpredictable book. So although there's not necessarily huge twists or anything, there are a couple of reveals at the end that took me by surprise. It is a really interesting insight into these people who are put in a really awkward, difficult, challenging situation. So I gave it 3 stars because although it is a really good book, it wasn't quite my thing. But I definitely think if any of that sounded up your alley, you would enjoy this quite a lot. I already started my next book and the stack. Ugh. I started The Unbroken Name. I'm only 60 pages into this, so 3 chapters. The blurb on the back of this one reads, Xoe was raised by a death cult steeped in old magic, and on her 14th birthday she's destined to climb a mountain to sacrifice herself at the Unspoken One's shrine. Yet even as she prepares for death, a sorcerer offers her a new fate. Leave with him and live, turn away from her destiny and her god to become his thief, spy, and assassin. Together they could topple an empire and help him re-establish control. However, Xoe will discover that gods remember. She may learn to live on a knife edge, gaining skills and power, but friends can turn to traitors, and if you live long enough, all debts become due. So far, it is unlike anything I've ever read, and also very similar to things that I have already read. Her leaving her cult happens very quickly, so that's not a spoiler, it's on the back, it happens within the first chapter. But her motivation for doing that was clear, but it's how she processes it all afterwards. There are some time skips where I don't feel that her leaving this cult, that this is all she's ever known, she was the unspoken one, she was destined to die, and that is tugged away from her, and we don't really see her processing that so far. Again, I'm only 60 pages in, but I also feel like we're past the point where I would have put that information in the book, so maybe it'll crop up later. It is definitely interesting. This is one of those books where the names are really tricky to pronounce. So Xorwe is spelled Csorwe. There is a glossary at the beginning of the book, which is very helpful because every single name that pops up is just a sort of jumble of letters that don't necessarily follow phonetic rules that you are familiar with. I tend to avoid reading glossaries straight away just because I feel like it can take some of the excitement out of the book if I already kind of know who's going to be introduced in it. But just scanning the sort of the principal characters was very helpful, and then being able to refer to it every time a new name pops up is very helpful, and I appreciate that. So yeah, I am excited for this book, and I will update you when I have finished it. Hello from a different angle. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this because I've done some maths and I have to get the second lot of 6 books back by the 26th of May, which is a Thursday. That week is also the second week that I'm away for work, and I'm away Monday to Friday. So I would have to have all those library books finished the weekend before, which is next weekend. So what I am essentially attempting to do is read the last chunk of that. I think it's like 250 pages, but this book takes really long time to read. Like, it's dense text. Plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more in 7 days. And even like it's midnight now, we're like 15 minutes into Sunday, and I've got to get it all finished by the end of next Sunday, because my partner can drop it off at the library, that's fine. I just can't take them with me when I leave on the Monday, if that makes sense. What I've also realised is that I knew I'd already bought Killers of a Certain Age on the Kindle, so I already own a copy of that, and I also already own a copy of The Lighthouse Witches, also on my Kindle, because they were cheap, and they were cheap. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and finish off all the other books, and I will leave those till last. If I think I can finish them off, I don't think I'm going to be able to. If I think I can, I will try. But I'm going to deprioritize those, which leaves me with 5 more books after this to read in a week. And if I risk it and take a couple with me when I travel for work, I might be able to do it. All I have to do is not lose the books. I'm a capable human being. I can do that. That's fine. I'd only be reading them in the hotel room anyway, so they're not going anywhere. It's also more, do I want to lug a chunk of books to Chelsea? I'll work it out. But I think that's the updated situation. I haven't finished this. I'll update you again when I've finished. Possibly in a couple of hours. We'll see. It's 2 a.m. I finished the book. It was good. It was a very good epic fantasy in a sort of baffling way. It is the longest book I've read in a while, but it's also it was really fast paced. Like, I expected a lot of the scenes to take longer, and I felt like we brushed over a lot of the main events without really discussing them or processing them, or like taking the time that I'm used to other books taking when big shit goes down. So that really caught me off guard. The second thing that caught me off guard is that I didn't realise the main character was an orc until like 4 chapters in. They don't call them that, but she's an orc. And I was going to complain about the ending being a bit anticlimactic, but now that I know that there's a second one and it's a series, it makes more sense. The characters were great. It's very funny. I never know what the main character is gonna, like, what decisions she's going to make. And although I could predict parts of the plot, there were some bits where I was genuinely just like, well, how the fuck are they gonna get out of this situation? And then they did. So I would definitely recommend it to anyone who likes epic fantasy, who likes funny books. Yeah, overall, solid book with some baffling elements. I'm gonna go to bed now. Yeah. Hello. It is 9:43 on Sunday. I am not very well, which is a good thing, I suppose, because it means I can just sit here and read all day. But I'm about to start Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, jumping from one fat fantasy book to another, but at least this one is 100 pages shorter, so this one's 480 pages, which realistically is going to take me about 5 hours if I stick to my 100 pages an hour speed that I know I can do. I think my goal for today is to finish this book. If I can start another one after that, I'll be happy. But I also have to go to D&D this evening. So, goal for today, start and finish this book before I have to go to D&D. And hopefully don't feel like a living corpse by that point as well. I will check in later. Good morning. I'm very ill. It is 5:20 in the morning and I haven't slept yet. But I have finished Shadow of the Gods. So gold star for me, I guess. 5 stars. Fantastic book. I don't know that I explained the premise in any earlier clips because I seem to be filming these all at stupid o'clock at night or in the morning, whatever it may be. It's Norse inspired epic fantasy, multiple points of view, and the main plot revolves around a mother trying to find her son after her family is killed and her son is taken along with many other children from the area. And then the 2 other points of view come in from wherever they're at, and then they become relevant too, because that's how books work. Yeah, really good. It's heavily Norse inspired. I don't know how much of it is true, but there's a lot of really cool, like, Norse mythical creatures, including trolls. So, bonus brownie points for trolls. Yes, big fan. There's no way I'm going to finish all these books in a week. No way at all. I'm still going to try, but there's no way. No way. At the very least, this will be just a library book reading vlog, I guess.
where I tear through some of the books on my TBR that I've been wanting to read for a while. I'm probably going to start the next one now because I don't want to go to bed because I'm very ill, and not being able to breathe and just generally leaking out of my face makes it very difficult to go to sleep. So I'll read instead. So I'm going to take a break from fantasy and read Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. It's another 400-page book. The only two books that are under 400 pages in the stack are the two that I'm not going to read because I already own them on Kindle. So maybe this is just a how many fucking huge books can I read in a week while working full time. So this is, I think, a haunted house thrillery situation. It's about a nanny who looks after a 5-year-old, and then he starts drawing disturbing pictures of his imaginary friend. Things happen from there. What is really cool is that there are pictures included in the book. For example, picture. Yes, see you in the next clip. Hello. It has now been a week since I started this. I haven't done any vlogging or reading in the last 4 days because I started a new job and went on my first business trip. Fancy adult things. But I have started and finished When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. I don't think I introduced this in an earlier clip, so I'm just going to read you the blurb now. Wisconsin, 1955. In a world where girls and women are taught to be quiet, the dragons inside them are about to be set free, and nothing will ever be the same again. When hundreds of thousands of ordinary women sprout wings, scales, and talons and take to the skies in a blaze of fire and fury, 8-year-old Alex Green is one of those left behind, and no one will talk about what happened. Best forgotten, everyone says. But Alex can't forget, nor does she want to. As Alex grows into a fiercely independent teenager, she must face the consequences of the mass dragoning. A society closing in on itself, a mother more protective than ever, watching her beloved cousin Beatrice becoming dangerously obsessed with the forbidden. And it is exactly that, a whole bunch of women turned into dragons, and it's about the aftermath and the consequences of that mass dragoning. And it does go a little bit into like the science of it and the biology. There's a professor character who like is doing lots of research on it and stuff. Yeah, it's a very weird book. Like it's a good example of speculative fiction because it's just so fucking weird. And because it's set in the 50s as well, there's a lot of very, very sexist views in here that are addressed. Like, they're not claiming they're right or anything, but there were a lot of moments that just made me very, very angry. And it did suffer from why didn't you just tell the arsehole who's being an arsehole? But also, that was sort of understandable in the circumstances. I won't spoil exactly why. I gave this a 4 stars just because I thought it was a really inventive idea. It was executed really well. The writing's very cool. Yeah, there's a lot of frustrating moments, but I think it's a good sign when a book makes you frustrated in a way that it was designed to, not because it's a bad book. So 4 stars. I'm glad I got it from the library. I think I wouldn't have wanted to buy this myself. But yeah, that was When Women Were Dragons. Now, in terms of the rest of the books, I did a thing. You know when you have an appointment at, say, like 5, and you're like, okay, well, I'll aim to get there for 1:45 because then I definitely won't be late. And then a couple of days pass and you go, oh, my appointment's at 1:45. I'll get there for 1:30 just in case, like, I'll make some more time. And then you end up getting there like 40 minutes early or something stupid like that. That's what I've kind of done with these library books. In my head, they were all due back this coming week. They are not. I had 3 that were due back this week and they went back this week because I already read them. That's fine. But the rest of them are all due back the week after next. So I have a little bit longer to read them because I'm away this week, but I'm back next week. So I will be able to drop them off at the library so I don't have to finish them early, which is good. That said, I do have 2 more books to pick up that have come through. So that's fun. I also realised I have a 3rd one of them on Kindle. So currently I have 1 book left. I have Saint Death's Daughter left, which is the only out of the stack of 4 that I have that I don't already own in another format. And then Silver Under Nightfall, Killers of a Certain Age, and The Lighthouse Witches. I all have all of them on Kindle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the library today just to pick up the books to see what they are. I'll drop off When Women Were Dragons. I'm going to start and finish Saint Death's Daughter this weekend, hopefully. But I'll just take my Kindle with me when I go away this week, because then I can read the library books on the Kindle, which kind of defeats the point, but I'm sticking to the theme here. It works in my head. We're going with it. So yes, Saint Death's Daughter will be my next read. Hello, I'm in a hotel because I'm on a business trip. And I can't remember if I talked about what my original plan was. For some reason, I was planning on taking actual physical books on a week-long business trip. Because I'm an idiot, I have a Kindle. It's a very, it's a good Kindle. And I have 3 of my library books on there already. So that's what I'm doing. I'm reading that now. I'm currently reading Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chapeko. I'm 50 pages in. So far it feels like I'm reading an anime crossed with Bridgerton. It's very odd. I'm into it. It's just very confusing. It doesn't help that I tried to read it over dinner in a restaurant as well, so I could hear lots of other people talking at the same time, and I got a little bit confused. But it's good. I do like a good vampire book. It's one of those books where the period it's set in is really throwing me, because on the one hand they're talking about the ton, like Bridgerton style, and on the other hand they're talking about wheelchairs and oxygen tanks, and I'm not exactly an expert on oxygen tanks and their invention, but the two don't seem to go together in my head. I'm just having a very hard time placing it, but I am enjoying the story. It is so far very, very different from other vampire stories I've read, and I appreciate new takes on vampires because I will forever be one of those Twilight girlies. That's it. That's my update. I finished it. Yes, I have finished Silver Under Nightfall. It is the most Castlevania book I've ever read in my life. I don't think it could be more Castlevania if it tried. This is the sort of book that is begging to be an anime, if it isn't already. No, it's a new book. It probably isn't. It was good. I enjoyed it. I rated it 4 stars. It is a solid around feudal Eastern European style countries. The names all felt like the author took all the suffixes and prefixes and all the parts of very British old-timey Victorian names, put them in a blender, and just sort of took whatever came out. That said, there was also a lot of diverse representation. There were Hispanic communities and Asian communities represented in the book, which is nice because you don't always see that in this type of book. And as far as I'm aware, it was done well, but I am not the person to be asking or consulting on these matters. Yeah, it was good. It was very, very vampire-y, and it did have one of those 100-year age gaps that I don't love. But because it wasn't like it wasn't like a 100-year-old vampire and a teenager. It was a 100-year-old vampire and an adult. It was easier to stomach. I will be reading the second one. I didn't realize it was a series, but it is. The next book's coming out next year, and I didn't see the twist at the end coming. So yes, I would recommend it if you like vampires and gore and fighting and mystery. There's a good element of mystery in this book. But moving on, I will be reading Killers of a Certain Age, which I've just reread the blurb because I haven't reread the blurb in a while. It's about 4 spies, female spies, who have been part of this organisation called the Museum for 40 years. And they've been sent on this all expenses paid holiday as a big thank you for leaving or whatever. And then it turns out it's actually just a ploy to kill them, and now they've got to use all their skills and wiles to get themselves out of it. I can't
get the comparison between this book and the film Red, I think it is, out of my head, even though I have neither seen that film nor read this book. But in my head, all these characters are already Helen Mirren and Judi Dench and all those other fantastic old ladies who are very good at acting. And I think that's going to be enjoyable. I'm going to go read now.
Hello. So I DNF'd Killers of a Certain Age. It just wasn't very good. My main issue with it was that for 4 lady assassins, I couldn't work out what their motivation was for killing, and they kept jumping straight to the conclusion that just everyone needed to die. And I realise it's not supposed to be entirely realistic, like it's a thriller, spy, whatever. But it's not a fantasy. And I think it was just unbelievable, and I didn't think that people would act that way. And yeah, I just didn't like it. I got about 50% of the way through and DNF. Not for me, so that's gone back to the library. I have started Saint Death's Daughter, which is very good. It's giving me really cool Addams Family vibes. It's one of those books where every detail about the world building has been completely made up from scratch and renamed. So none of the months of the year are the same, none of the days of the week are the same. Everything's different. And that put me off initially until I just read the prologue, and then it all made sense. And this book wouldn't work if it was set in anywhere near realistic. It wouldn't work if it was set in a realistic world. It is obscenely morbid, but it is about, like, it's following a family of necromancers and their daughter who's allergic to violence, which is really interesting given that the eldest daughter is a complete cow and a very violent person. So that's fun. And it's like morbidly slapstick as well. Like, because they're necromancers, death doesn't hold the same taboo that you're used to in everyday life. And it's just really entertaining, and I've never read anything like it before. I'm only like 3 or 4 chapters in, but I'm really, really enjoying it. So that's good. The other update is that I got another notification saying that I had 2 library books down at the library waiting for me, so another 2 of my holds had come in. And I was like, yeah, okay, 2 more I can handle, that's fine. Went down to the library. They gave me 5. There you go, my sunglasses. So this is going to be a longer vlog than anticipated. I debated putting it into 2 parts, but I don't think I want to, because I don't think that's very interesting. So I'm just going to keep reading. I'm really excited for Tress of the Emerald Sea, because I've heard a lot of good things about that, and I didn't think that the library would have it. But they do, so that's exciting. Yeah, so Saint Death's Daughter, and I've got 1 more from the original stack, which is The Lighthouse Witches. They're due back on Friday, which is in 6 days. So I can very easily get those back before then. And then I've got 3 weeks to read 5 books, which is very doable. Especially as 2 of them are actually quite small, and 1 of them is large font, so I think that'll be easy to read. Mask of Mirrors is chunky though. Good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning because I'm on the early shift at work. But last night I finished Saint Death's Daughter. I was torn between a 4 and a 5 star for this book, but I think the like whammy of the ending pushed it to a 5. And I think in the last clip I mentioned it being quite Addams Family. That vibe continues all the way through, but only so much in sort of the dynamics of the family and the way that death is talked about and treated. This book was unlike anything else I've ever read, so I'd really recommend it if you read fantasy. There are a whole bunch of trigger warnings, and while some are dealt in a sort of slapstick way, mainly the sort of death related ones, there are some others you should probably look up if you are going to try and read this book. I have a lot of thoughts on this book, and I think that's going to have to be its own separate video, because it's a monster of a book. It's like 600 pages. It's told in like 4 parts. It's like an epic fantasy essentially, except it's not epic because it all takes place in like the same area. Is that what quantifies an epic fantasy? I feel like epic fantasies like sprawl all over multiple kingdoms and realms and places like that. This doesn't do that, but it feels epic nonetheless. It is a slow-moving book, but the characters and the world building and just how everything is set up is just so well thought out. And in the author's note, the author chats about how long it took to write this book, and you can tell how much work has been put into it. And don't get me wrong, there were bits, I think there was a bit in the middle where I slumped a little bit and just maybe wasn't quite as interested in the plot as I was before. But then the ending brought it right back. So that's exciting. Yeah, I want to coalesce my thoughts into one actual video. That is not going to be this video. This video is too long. I'm going to end the library vlog here because even though I do have another stack of 5 books, library books that I picked up the other day that were waiting for me, and I've got another one that's still waiting for me that's come in since, I'm not going to keep this vlog going on that long because I will go mad. So I'll read those on my own time. I did renew 2 of the books in the end, and that's okay. I think I kind of lost sight of what this vlog was supposed to be, whether I was trying to read all the books before time ran out, or yeah, I don't know. I've read a lot of good books in this vlog though. Going to the library for some of them, like some of the books on my TBR that I'm most excited about, is probably the best way to go because it also took less time than I was expecting for them to come in. I don't need to jump on the internet and order books when I want them. This is a much more sustainable way of doing things. I am very excited to get to the next stack of books though, so I will get on that soon. But yeah, I'm going to end this here. If you've read any of the books, let me know if you liked any of them. If my ratings were skewed, maybe, from reading them all in such a short period of time, let me know if that's what you think. Yeah, I am looking forward to going back to reading at my own pace again. I think I got a bit carried away. The whole, oh, I've got to read it for the vlog thing. So, nice experiment. Maybe we'll do this again in the future.